Okay, so today our class is focused on discussing about manufacturing. Now, last time we discussed about the design process in general and manufacturing, which means making of the design. It comes towards the end of the design process. It's before the distribution and selling of the design, before it reaches the people, basically. So this stage, the manufacturing, the making of the design, it's actually a very important stage to look at and to discuss in a little more detail, because this basically affects the overall economics of a design. It affects the final cost, the price, everything. There is a lot of things that's related to this stage that affect the final product cost. And this is something very important, so we need to discuss about this today. So, now the different manufacturing methods. They are different for the different, basically, design fields. Like if you say graphic design, a certain design, when you make it a brochure, a poster, a booklet, a business card, this kind of stuff, everything that's related to making this design, printing it, all the stage, is different than if you talk about the fashion design industry or product design industry. Every industry has its own type of manufacturing methods. This includes different types of machines, different materials used, even the manufacturing process can be a little bit different from one industry to another. So it depends which one you're going to be focusing in the future, working in. You will be dealing with these things. But for example, it's very different materials that I need. If I want to make a brochure, okay, now there are a lot of types that I can choose from, like different paper types, quality, finishings, colors, all these kind of things. But in the end, it's printed. So printing machines are making this. So these are certain types of machines. Now, when we talk about a product like this, which has metal, which could have plastic in it, which could have... so here, the manufacturing methods, techniques, the way it goes through, it's totally different than in the graphic design industry. So every industry has their own methods, and it's not our goal to focus on what are the methods, because this alone needs at least a semester or two to understand in full detail. But it's important to understand that there are differences, okay, in these industries. Now, so manufacturing is coming towards the end of the design process before the distribution and selling. So after a design is made, so after, for example, this brochure has been printed and finished, what will happen? Distribution. So this has to reach the client who ordered this. Okay, it has to reach this person. Now again, it's different from industry to industry. Okay, in this regard. So there are a little bit different types here. So the producer is the one who is making, who is manufacturing the design. Okay, so this is what the producer here means. The company that is making the design. Because if you remember before, we mentioned that sometimes companies are dealing only with the design process, only with the phase of the design, but not the making of the design. So the design is completed with for example, the computer drawings, everything, but then to make it, they take it to another company. So not all the companies have the machinery or everything available to make it possible to produce, to make the design. Okay, so just keep this in mind. So the producer is the company that's manufacturing the design. Sometimes the producer sells directly to the customer, to the people, directly. Or the customer himself come to the producer and take his design. So I ordered from a print shop to make for me 500 of these, maybe I will come and take them because they're not heavy, you know, to carry. They're not big, you know, cardboards or, you know, like tons of heavy equipment. It's just a couple of brochures. I can pass by and take them. So either this one sells it immediately, sends it to the customer, or the customer takes it from the producer. Sometimes the producer who makes the design sells, gives these designs, all of them, to the retailer. The retailer sells to the customer. So it's the retailer, for example, in the supermarkets. You know, all the items in the supermarket get delivered. Everybody has seen with the big, you know, like lorries, you know, coming, delivering the products to the supermarket. From where they take them? From the producer. And they distribute to the retailers. The retailers sell to the customer. So this is another type. And this is usually with bigger products, heavier products, you know, in bigger quantities. Selling here through wholesalers. Here we have again the producer who first sell to the wholesaler everything, then this one distributes it to the retailers to the customer. So this is here with products that are produced in huge quantities. Like, for example, you make this computer, you produce this computer, but 100,000 computers. So they put them in boxes, large ones. Then these go to the wholesaler. This one have all these things. Then he will start distributing to different retailers. And then the retailers, basically the customer buys from them. So it depends really the quantity of the products, the size of the products. So it can go through these three processes until it reaches the end user. But every design will have to reach the end user in some way or another. Now, about manufacturing, we need to understand there are three types. Basically two major types. The mass production, craft production, and this one is a mixed between the two. So craft production, mass production, we need to understand what's the difference between them and how it affects the final design, final product. So if we produce something by craft, understand that craft production is more of a handwork production. So it's people who by hand, not by complicated machinery, by hand make something. They make the design through their own hands, okay? While mass production is fully machines used. So the people, you don't put anything from you. The machine is actually making the different parts. Maybe here, you're just, as a human, you're just involved in assembling. So the machine produced this part, and this part, and this part, and this part. Then you are the one who put them together. But that's maximum what you do. All the machines are making the parts. Here, the person himself is making the part. So there is a huge difference in the result of the design. Now, anything that is handwork, there is a slight percentage of inaccuracy, more than with machines. The machines are more accurate than the human. Now, the most accurate human and perfection in his work, still, if I produce, for example, 10 same pieces, okay, 10 same pieces, and I'm very good at my work, still there could be slight differences, maybe half millimeter difference somewhere in what I'm making. Handwork can never be 100% the same. If you produce 10 or 100 pieces, all of them to be perfect like produced by machines in mass production, okay? They can never be the same. So this must be kept in mind, the quality. Because what we're discussing here, this relates to later we will see to the cost, the final cost, the quality, all of these things are interrelated. So, craft production usually does not create as accurate work as mass production. Now, also in craft production you will find some of these, for example, smaller workshops, like you've seen them maybe here in downtown, you know, someone has a small workshop with some simple wood cutting machines, half of the job done by hand, half of the job with machines, but still the worker himself is doing the majority of the work. So in this kind of manufacturing environments, the people who work to create this design, like you will see, for example, one person doing a lot of things, like now I'm doing this, then I'm running to the other machine doing something, maybe here I'm doing something by hand, filing here. So you do a lot of things around around the shop to create this design. In mass production, on the other hand, you will see every person sitting somewhere and doing only one specific movement or two movements all day, from 8 to 5. Only this you do. For example, you move this piece from here, or do some simple things over and over and over again, the same thing. So here you do more things, and here you do less, but concentrated. Now this can have a big difference in the end result. If you do a lot of things, then you get like this focus, this concentrated, the quality will come down. Because now I'm doing this, then I'm running over there doing something else, then I'm going here doing something. So I cannot really focus on my job to do one thing. Here, you perfect yourself at this one thing, okay? Or two things, that's it. All day you're doing the same. Now this can become very boring for the worker. Here it can become boring, here it's less boring. But here the accuracy is more than here. So, working the same thing can become, as I said, boring. It can create more safety problems because you might fall asleep while doing the same job. You know, your hands start doing the movement, but your brain starts falling asleep. So it can create safety issues. So each one of them has positive and negative parts. Now, in craft production, to make something, a design, will take longer time than in mass production. If you do something by hand, it takes longer time. That's why the cost is more expensive. So if you buy, for example, always, everybody has seen handmade products. The price is always very high. Why? Because someone might tell you, I spent like 100 days working on this one piece until I make it by hand. So it takes a lot of time, and this results in an increase of the final cost. Whereas, like if everything is produced by machines, it's very quick, and the machine can produce 1 million pieces in no time, for example. So the final cost of the product will come down. It will become more and more cheap. The more is produced here by these methods, the more cheap the final cost. But the machines that make this design possible are the expensive part. So one machine could cost more than $1 million. For example, for the plastics, for the metals, they have very expensive machines. But again, if you plan to design something that will be produced in millions to be distributed all over the world, the machine is not really expensive, because this will be used over and over and over again, and so many products will be sold. However, if you want to make just a few pieces, like you have 5 or 10 people who want a specific thing, and you want to make for these people, it will be super expensive to go to mass production to make it. So hand production, even though it's like expensive because of the handwork, it's still cheaper than if you want to produce small quantity through mass production. Here you need big quantities, a lot of pieces, for this to be cost effective. For this, it's cost effective if you just have a few pieces. Okay. Now, most of the things here I already discussed. Let me see if something I haven't. Now, this is an important point also. In craft production, look at this, customization is easier than in mass production. So, customization means what? For example, a client wants something original for themselves, a certain design with certain features, finishings, only for you, so you cannot see it anywhere else in the market. This is customization. I want something specific, okay? And you tell, I want it like this, and the designer make it for you. Now, customization is easy when you're actually working handwork. It's easy to change and customize the way your client wants. But when you're dealing with the big machines in mass production, and someone comes to you and say, can you please change this design a little bit that way, for example, it's impossible, because the machine is designed to produce this part. You cannot tweak it and change it on the go. You cannot. You need to go back to the design phase. You need to redesign the files so that the machine can understand. You need sometimes to redesign parts of the machine to make this piece. It's very expensive. So, impossible. Now, only when you have mass-produced products, so the parts themselves cannot be customized the way you want. But the end result, for example, you have a certain product, and at the end stage, like I want, for example, something printed on them, a logo or the color to be changed. These kind of things, sometimes it's possible to be done in mass production, but as I said, like changing the shape of certain parts, this is a very difficult job. While in craft production, it's more easy to customize. But as we said, the quality may not be top. So all of these points, basically in general, I already talked about them, but they are written for you down in case, you know, the important things to have them in writing. So, as we said, mass production is kind of inflexible. It's not as flexible as the hand production method. So, just in case, you know, if the word you don't know. So, all the products that will be produced in mass production, they're the same. You know, like you see the same design over and over and over again, but it's 100% accurate, 100%. And, you know, you cannot change it as customers want in the final minute. You cannot. It's a long process. As I said, at the end, various finishings, decorations, you know, this can be changed a little more easily, but that's the end stage of the production through mass production, so keep this in mind. So, now, whether mass production or craft production or a mixture, because sometimes, as we said, there is craft and mass production, but sometimes some companies use mixture of both. Like, there is some parts that some people do by hand, other parts by machines, so it's a mixture. But these are the main ones, hand and craft production, which you really need to know about. That's why I discussed them in more detail. So whatever the method chosen by the company to create what? The final product, the final design. So it should be clear what? That the methods affect the final cost in different ways. The final cost of the design. So what will it cost? Because this is important, because the human, the customer, he will be the one who pay for it, okay? So this is important. So, in general, companies and designers usually aim at two things: reducing product cost and increasing sales. And the money issue. Now, reducing product cost, it's the final cost of the product. Now we will talk in a minute about how this can be done. But the final cost, companies in general always try to reduce it as much as possible and increase the sales. Now, the sales means how many of these pieces will be bought by the customer. So, will 100 be sold, 1 million, 10 million? So, they always aim at increasing sales while reducing cost, okay? Now, we will talk about these two things in a minute. The money issue, okay? The money, remember always that companies need to profit. A company cannot exist without profit. What's profit? Money earned, okay, from the sales, because on what the company lives? On this money, okay, so the profit. And also the designers who work in the company, they want salaries. So now these salaries, the profits, everything, all of this comes together in the final cost of the product. Imagine if the designer salaries is very high. That means the end cost of the design will also be higher. What if the company takes a lot of profit? Also, this will affect the final cost. Now, it's not about only designers. A company has many kinds of workers. Even the cleaner is a worker in the company who take a salary. So, all of these things affect the final cost, many others as well. So, companies always try to reduce the cost, increase sales. And there is this, the money issue that needs to be always considered. Now, how can product cost, how can this be achieved? To reduce product cost and increase sales. Companies can reduce product cost by several ways. Okay? One of them is using cheaper manufacturing methods and materials. So, if you use cheaper methods to make a design and cheaper materials, of course the final cost will be lower. Using less employees in the company. So, instead of employing 10 designers, I employ just 2 or 1 to do all the work. Okay? This will reduce the final cost. Also, employing people, designers with less skill, so not very good designers, okay? Not with a lot of experience. This means what? That the company will pay you less salary than someone with a very experienced designer and very popular one. So, your salary, if you're not a good designer, if you don't have experience, it will be lower. That means that will also affect the final cost of whatever is designed. So, less people, less skilled people, okay, this affects the final cost. Of course, it will also affect the quality, but we will talk about this after we finish with this list. Reducing employee salaries. You know, we can see it everywhere in Jordan, you know. So you work very hard all day, and in the end, after 1 month of working, you get 100 JDs, or 150, or 200, you know. And you say, what can I do with this money? It's not enough. So, but by companies, by reducing employee salaries, that's one method to reduce the product cost, or the cost of the design in the end. Now, dealing also with similar design projects and less innovation. We already know about this point. So companies, you know, by reducing the type of innovation, by dealing with the same project over and over again, they reduce the cost, because the research, market research, cost planning, a lot of other things, you don't have to pay for them. New marketing doesn't have to be paid for. So everything, you already know the process, you have experience in this, and this also can help in reducing the cost. Okay, now all of these things, these points that we talked about, you can use, for example, as we said, cheaper manufacturing, cheaper materials, not paying the employees high salaries, and so on and so on. But all of this will affect the quality negatively. So the design that is made, imagine you are a designer working in a company and you're not getting paid, or getting paid very little. Of course, you will not produce very high quality work, of course. Or imagine a company that uses bad machines, like the computers are very old, not working properly, not updated, the machines are half broken. What quality design you will produce? The quality will go down, okay? So, what about if companies employ designers with not enough skill, like they do here? For example, instead of employing you after you graduate with 4 years of experience in the design field and knowledge, they employ someone who took 2 months of course in Photoshop and Illustrator, and he's not a designer, absolutely. He just have a little bit of a computer skills, but no design skills. And the company employs such a person and pay him very little money instead of taking a real designer with higher salary. And it happens all the time. Yeah. So why they do that? To reduce the final cost of what they make. Okay, depends which industry you're talking about, but in the end cost will be lower this way. But also the quality. Because these people who are not designers, they cannot do good work like a real designer. They cannot, with just a few computer skills. Also the machines, if they're old, also the materials, if they're bad, everything affects the quality. Okay? Now, if you want a good quality design, you need to also have these factors working for you. So the price will also be higher. Now, okay, we talked about how some companies use certain factors to reduce the cost of the produced design. But how can sales be increased by companies? Sales means what again? How many of these designs will be sold? Because the number of designs that are being sold is important. It's important. For example, you spend a lot of time in the company as a whole spend a lot of time designing and making a certain design. For example, making this, okay, it takes a long time to make. To design it, to make it, to test it, you name it, all the process. And in the end, nobody buys it. Or just a few people buy it. It will be a loss for the company. So how many are sold is often very important. So, sales can be increased by reducing the final retail price of products, but this may result in reduced quality that may cause company profit loss in the long term. Now, reduce final retail price. Now, here, you may say, okay, some companies will say, okay, I will increase sales by reducing the final cost of this. We went through the design process, I spent money here and here and here and here, and in the end I came up with a certain cost that will cover all my expenses. But I will put it even more lower. Then what will happen? What's the problem with putting too low the price? Is that the company may not have enough profit. The profit is important. So you have to sell this at a higher price than what you spent producing it. So when you put together all the salaries of the employees, the machinery, the paying the electric bills, pay everything about the company that you put to produce this, okay? In the end, if you sell it in the same price, with the same expenses, you gain no profit. If you sell this higher price, the higher price, you will gain this profit. So this can also affect. You cannot just lower the end price the way you want. It must be done through a research and through careful decision making, so that the company does not lose the profit. And remember, once you put a certain price on an item and sell it, you cannot change it. Like today I put this price, tomorrow I put 2 JDs extra, then I put 5 JDs extra. No, you cannot do it. Because the people that buy it, I'm used to buying this pen for half JD. Suddenly, I go and buy it and they tell me it costs 2 JDs. I will say, what happened here? You know, I will start protesting as a customer. So I will not buy this pen anymore. I will find another one, another brand. So you cannot change the end cost the way you like, because people get used to certain things. If you change it suddenly, a lot of protests happen. I mean, look even in our daily lives, when they raise the price of something, they raise a lot of prices actually. The fuel, the, you know, the bread, I don't know, you name it, everything is going up, up, up. How the people are not happy, you know? The same thing can happen here with design, when we talk about design, not about food items and these kind of things. Now, product sales can also be increased by increasing the final retail price without loss of sales volume. This is very important. Now, so we want to increase the number of products sold, but so we don't want to lose sales volume. That means if before I used to sell this product for 1 million customers, I want to stay in the same level, but I will raise the price. So how can I raise the price and expect that the same number of people will buy it with more expensive cost, more expensive price, I mean. This requires the company to do two things, okay? To improve the product's perceived value. This is very important. We talked about this before. The value that the customer thinks this product deserves. So through the design, to increase the perceived value, the value that the customer perceives it to have. Maybe it's true, maybe not true. But the customer believes that this is a good quality product. So increasing the perceived value means you can increase the final cost and the sales volume will stay the same because the people believe it is a good product. So we will buy it even if it costs more expensive. This is very important to understand. So, but usually to increase the perceived value, you need to increase the quality. Like, you cannot just increase perceived value with putting nothing in the design. You need to improve on something. Now, not that always it has to be that way, but in most cases, that's the easiest way. You improve the quality, then through the design, through the way the design looks, and of course what type of marketing you do, and so on, this can change the perceived value of the customer and make more people want to buy this product. So, for the changing of the perceived value, so often you need quality change also, better quality. Then you can raise the price and expect that the sales volume will not go down. Okay, so maybe this is the last slide for today, so not a very long lecture, hopefully, but still very important information. So, no company will exist what if profits are not made. Well, we already mentioned that companies live on profits. So the extra money that they gain from the sales, so all this design process until the production and the manufacturing stage, this costs money. All of this costs a lot of money from the company. Then in the end there are sales, selling it to the customer. So after selling it with a specific price, the company needs to have a profit. Otherwise, they will close. So how can design companies succeed in general, you know, and increase the profit? Now, this is in general, okay? Very basic general guidelines. First of all, good market research and knowledge of the industry. So always doing good research as a company to understand the market, to have knowledge of the industry. If you go and open a company in an industry you know nothing about, basically you are doomed for failure. Like I know nothing about fashion design, but I go and open a company and I start expecting that I will succeed. No, I need research, I need knowledge before. Okay? Less competition around. Now, the more competition you have, the more it increases your chances to fail. What's competition? You open a design company here, next to you is another, like for example, a print shop, graphic design and printing company. You open here. And next to you is another, and on the other street another, and 5, 6, 7, 8 printing companies in the area. What will happen? All of these companies will kind of have less customers. I mean, if they're all working in the same level, quality, pricing, all of this, they will get less and less customers because the customers will be distributed among a lot of companies. So it's more likely to fail that way. So the less competition you have, the better. Because everybody will come just to you. Good experience in the industry. Now look, experience is different than knowledge. Knowledge is having the knowledge. Like I can gain knowledge by reading a book, by reading something online. This is gaining knowledge. But experience is very different. You need experience. That's why I'm telling you. Some things cannot be taught to you in the university. You need to actually go and work and experience, gain that experience that nobody can teach you. Here you learn the knowledge. There you learn the experience. So, if you open a company and you don't have experience, this is a doom for failure. So, before you open a company, if you plan to do that, it is best to first work in a company as a designer. Like, I plan to open an interior design company. Before I do that, I have to be an interior designer working in a company, an interior design company, and learning from the experience how this works, how the details in the industry work. Then when I open my own company, I already have this experience. Not only the knowledge, but experience. Okay? So this is very important. So some companies that just open without having the experience, without doing the research, or having knowledge, what can you expect? Good cost management. Cost management. Money, okay? It's like a lot of it is about money. If you don't manage your money in a correct way, through, of course, there are many, many methods for that. We will look at some much later on in the course. Then, again, if you cannot do the calculations right, you are doomed for failure because you may end up without any profit. Good knowledge of the design process. Now, depending on which industry you work in, there is a design process to follow. Now, if you don't know about this design process or you don't have enough knowledge, it will also affect your success or failure. Having good people skills. Definitely, you need good people skills. If you're in the business world and you don't have good people skills, you will lose customers just because of this point. Like, for example, you're the owner of a company and stay like this, like all day. A customer comes to you, you don't smile, you look at them like this, Who will want to buy from you? Who will want to come and deal with you? Nobody. You need to be friendly, you need to smile, you need to know how to talk to people. All these social kind of skills. The more you have of that, the more people will love you, and they will just come to your company because they like you. This can be a big thing here. Using skilled employees. Sometimes it's better in a company to employ 1 or 2 very good designers than 20 without skills. 20 bad ones, more bad than 2 very good ones. Yes, you will pay higher salaries to the good designers, but at least they will do a good job in the end. So some companies make a mistake, they employ people with no skill, and the result will always be bad, always. Using good equipment. If you as a company do not have enough money to invest in good equipment, like buying good computers, buying good machines, all of this stuff, then it's better not to open a company. Because using bad equipment, again, you put yourself up for failure. These machines will keep breaking. You will need to repair them. That means paying more money for the repair. And the design work will stop while they don't work. This is time. The time, okay? You will lose time, you will lose money, and always it's bad, okay? So good equipment must be invested in if you plan to succeed. Of course, this means more money. Again, to buy the good equipment, you need money for that. So if you don't have, don't open a company, okay? That's the advice. Size and location of company matters. Sometimes the size of the company and where you open it can influence, the success or the failure. Sometimes just choosing the wrong location, even if all your work is perfect, it will not bring any results. Just a wrong location. That's why some people make a whole research about where is the best place to open a certain company. So it depends what company. Are you going to open something for, the hairdresser? Or are you going to open a design company? It's very different. Or a supermarket, or a bakery. So what you open and where is very important, if it succeed or not succeed. And the size. The size also. Are you going to start small and then become larger and larger? Or are you opening something very large immediately? A lot of decisions to be considered. Now, there has to be also great demand, or at least some demand for these products. Like, you cannot open a company and make something that, okay, you didn't do your research, you don't know, are people going to want to buy this or not? Do they need it or want it? Remember when we talked about needs and wants? Okay, do people need this? Do people want it? So, if they don't need it and they don't want it, if I open a company making that product, it will fail. So, another type of research has to be done for this matter. And favorable government rules. This is something you don't control. So what kind of rules the government puts on you? Like, for example, the government increasing the taxes. Now, what companies have to pay. This is against you. That means what? Less profit for you. Because you have to pay more to the government, for example. Okay? And many other rules that can happen against you or for you as a company. This is out of your control. In the end, you need luck to a certain degree. Even sometimes when you do everything perfect, everything, you still fail. And sometimes you have certain imperfections in your process and you succeed. This is things that we cannot measure very easily. We cannot say exactly because of this reason or that reason this happened. You need a certain amount of luck, okay, sometimes. And but applying everything, in the best way possible, having the knowledge, the experience, will reduce the likelihood of failure. Reduce, okay? A lot. So, this is it for today. If you have any questions, please ask me.